Tagata. Well, being the last speaker before the lunch break, I will try to be as fast as possible, but first of all, I must tell you why yesterday Mr. Souza asked me to reduce the price of the rubber powder to zero, because it's because I work in Ecopeus, that is a company that is owned by the 6 major tire manufacturers that established Ecopeus to comply with a legal scheme and extend the producer responsibility that put them under the responsibility to provide for the proper management of end-of-life tires in a quantity that is proportional to the number of new tires that they have been placing on the market the year before. And so on their behalf, we are managing around 72–75% of the total Italian market that correspond to 250,000 tons of end-of-life tires per year. That is a lot. If you think about that, it's more than 1,100 tons of end-of-life tires per working day. That is a very big volume. And but of course, having the resources, you can do pretty much everything with a good management system. So we can collect tires from the tire fitters and trace and coordinate all the transportation and treatment operations down to the final recovery of those tires. But the true bottleneck of the entire supply chain, as well as in many other waste streams, is the replacement on the market of the recycled materials, because the demand on the market is not as big as the offer, unfortunately. And that's why we are working currently, and we have been working for many years together with the industry, the university, with several research centers, in order to create knowledge and disseminate knowledge about how to reuse in an efficient way recycled rubber. And our policy was has been also to disseminate those data in an open data approach, so giving them for free, so that everybody could make a good use of them, and maybe could also make a good profit about that. In other words, we are encouraging the change, especially in the mind of the public authorities or the directors or the decision makers that too often are rooted in old habits and cannot see the longer term. So that's why also because that's why we are currently we need to export a certain quantity of tires abroad, and that's something that we don't like. Absolutely, we are pushing for more and more recycling, but as I said before, the market demand is not as big as we would like, especially in Italy, and so 50%, even a little bit more than 50% of the tires still are converted into new fuels, so alternative fuels that are used in cement kilns for the cement production or other incinerators for energy production. And even worse, 14% of the tires that we manage must go elsewhere and are not recovered in Europe. So the benefits of this supply chain don't stay in Italy, but and neither in Europe, but are profitable, more profitable for countries that stay outside Europe. And still today, after years of efforts and spending a lot of resources to develop a new market, only 65% of the total value of the materials, of those valuable materials, remains in Italy and in Europe. And so it means that we have still a long journey to close the circle toward a circular economy, and would mean also to increase the number of jobs or employments in Italy, having also an eco fee that is paid by Italians that is converted into valuable material that are used by them. But unfortunately, that's the real world, and so being so difficult to place rubber in the market, we are still forced to do something that we are not willing to. And in terms of carbon footprint, fortunately, either the energy recovery in cement kilns, so in your right-hand side of the slide, you can see the carbon footprint and the impacts of energy recovery in the cement kiln, and on the left hand, the impacts of the recycling tires. So the light green columns demonstrate the savings in terms of CO2 due to the associated with the energy or energy recovery or recycling materials, and it is quite evident that recycling is preferable, even though the co-incineration is not as worse as somebody would like to show. I mean, there are savings also there, and so it's preferable to convert valuable material into a secondary fuel rather than dispose of it into a landfill, of course. So, looking at the asphalt market in Italy, as like in almost all over the world in the past decades, there have been several attempts with the dry process. Some of them were successful, others a complete failure. But we can place the date of birth of the rubberized asphalts in Italy around 2000, at the end of 2007 and early 2008, when the first entrepreneur in Italy decided to invest into blending units and start producing industrial rubber. Since then, we have some rubberized asphalt pavements, and unfortunately, 2007-2008 was not a lucky year to make that investment because of the forthcoming financial crisis that put to an end almost all the works and the investments in infrastructure in Italy. So also because of that, after 10 years, we have just roughly 350 kilometers lane of rubberized asphalt pavement. That's just very little if you think about that. Anyhow, in the most recent years, the main driver for the market is the need for reducing the noise emissions along the streets and along the roads, and so noise reduction is the main driver for the market. And that's why also several companies now are promoting and placing on the market their own mixtures and hot mixes and products, rubber-based products that aim at reducing the noise emissions on the road. And especially an hybrid dry technology is emerging and is widespreading, replacing several places the old wet technology. So the hybrid dry means the use of polymer modified bitumen and fine powder in a dry way. So, as I said, I honestly, in an ideal world, I would prefer to have a decision maker that take decisions not only based on the need of the noise abatement, but on a cathedral thinking way. I mean, looking at the life cycle and cost assessment of an investment. And so that's why we took the opportunity to commission to a laboratory the analysis of the assessment of the state of service of one of the first roads made with asphalt rubber in Italy in the late 2007, early 2008. That was successful story in a way, an Italian successful story, because at the time between the tendering and the execution of the works, the price of the bitumen had skyrocketed, and the contractor could not provide to the administrators, to the supplier, the right quantity of hot mixes, conventional hot mixes, without losing money. And so at that time they decided to change the original design that was a conventional one, a very thick one, 25 centimeters of hot mixes, and proposed to adopt completely the Hasparaba philosophy, and so they reduced they used thinner layers, 7 centimeters of hot mixes, gap graded, plus a stress absorbing membrane interlayer with rubberized asphalt on top of cold recycled base layer. So that way the company could make some little profit also on that work, and even though they didn't care about the sustainability of what they were doing at that time in terms of environmental sustainability, the further calculation made it evident that 40% of the CO2 reduction was achieved by reducing the quantity of materials that were used, new aggregates that were not used, and so forth. So on the left hand you can see the new rubber-based design in comparison with the right-hand column that described the original design that was a very thick one. So as I said, after 7-8 years we went there back in order to monitor what was the state of service of that road, and here you can see a picture, and that's how the top layer of the material looks like. Also today the mastic is still quite evident. It seems a quite new road, and in fact there were no cracking, no rotting, so the Americans were not saying tales, but it was all true, all real. And based on the mechanical analysis of the samples that were taken, and falling weight analysis and skidometers and things like that, the performance were similar to those of a new road, so excellent ones. And based on all the results, the mathematical modeling allowed us to estimate an expected lifetime of remaining lifetime of 18 years without the need of further maintenance. That's a good success. In terms of energy and CO2 emissions, it was a success, an environmental success. But I would also like to point out that it allowed also a company not to lose money, but to make some profit. So it can be a profitable solution also in the short term, allowing the building of durable roads. So, as I said before, it seems that the decision makers are not fitted with a long-term vision right now, and they are not taking too much into account the durability of the roads, but they care more about the noise emissions nowadays. And so that's why since 7 years ago, we launched this broad program of monitoring of several road testing sites, and we have been monitoring, and we still have 40 sites under periodic control, annual or semestral control, it depends, and we made either a close proximity index analysis and statistical pass-by ones, either in urban roads and in highways. And of course, if the design of the top layer is made properly, the noise emission is lower, but I must say that we could achieve the same results with any other material, probably, because the dimension of the aggregates is key, the texture, the roughness of the top layer is key in the noise reduction. But the rubberized asphalt performs well also in the long term. It means that the mastic, the rubberized mastics keep the stone aggregates in place so that the texture doesn't degrades over time, and the noise reduction, so the efficiency of the quiet pavement is more durable than all the other technologies that we have referenced to so far. So also the fact that it's a quiet pavement can be produced with a rubberized asphalt is true, and that's why our latest technical dossier into our library, free library, deals with the technical specifications for producing quiet pavements, either with a dry process, wet process, hot temperature, or with a warm mix asphalt. And that's also why we are a partner into Life Plus Finance European project aimed at reducing the noise with, at least by 6 decibel by using a lot of recycled material, either wrap and powder. So we launched that project just a few months ago, and the first outcomes will be ready in 1 year, I would say. Finally, as I said before, I'm always trying to develop the market in Italy, and so I deal with the decision makers, so the national authorities, the regional authorities, and unfortunately, I must say that the competition usually says that it smells of rubber, so it must be toxic in order to get rid of a potential competitor. That's very bad, and in fact, it's a eradicated idea among many decision makers, and so we needed to prove that if the smell is different, it doesn't mean that it's more dangerous for the human health. So in 2014 and 2015, we launched this monitoring program, and we monitored several working sites, assessing the quality of the air, the environmental quality, and the air in the breathing zone of the workers, the screedman, the driver of the paver or the roller, everybody was controlled so that we kept samples of the air with special pumps, but also we monitored the quantity of vapors that could condense and stick to on the skin of the workers, so that also a thermal exposure could be assessed by our study. So this is a picture that shows you either the personal pump that was used to take the sample of air, but also this patch that was aimed at capturing the air and determining also the thermal risk. So we repeated this exercise several times, either in working fields where rubberized asphalt was laid, but also with conventional asphalt. And I must say that the worst case that we found was in a site where no rubber was present. It was nighttime, and the temperature was skyrocketing. The blue smoke was quite evident also nighttime. So. At the end of the process of this exercise, we assessed the incremental carcinogenic risk, either with a conventional asphalt and rubberized ones. And based on our data, it seems that working at controlled temperature, so being at the same temperature, where the concentration of pH is likely lower, statistically consistently lower in the fumes of rubberized asphalt, and then lower than in conventional ones. And so the difference is not huge, but is statistically consistent. So we can say that In the worst case scenario, the risk to which the workers are exposed on a daily basis while laying down a rubberized asphalt or a conventional asphalt is almost the same. So there's not really a difference. There is a difference in the smell, of course. The perfume of rubber can be perceived as a smell by many people. But the same could be said also for the bitumen perfume, but it doesn't mean that there's any different exposure to the polyaromatic hydrocarbons, so there's not an increased risk for the human health. So in conclusion, I must confirm what has been said too many times, probably in these 2 days, so I won't repeat myself. I must just say that on general term, tire recycling is good either for the environment, but I would say also for the for the GDP of the country, because it creates jobs and it's make it possible to exploit the value of a material into the country at kilometer in a local area without compromising the safety or of the pavement or the safety of the human health of the workers. So that's all. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.